Hi there, I'm Cass. Today I would like to talk to you about art. I am an artist. I have been doing art for several years now professionally, but I've loved art my whole life. I grew up drawing, and in high school I dipped a little bit more into it, but it wasn't until I was an adult and out of the house that I really ended up pursuing it as more of a passion and then later on as a growing career. And the reason I'd love to talk to you about art today is that the skills I've gained over the years, I would really like to share them. I am by no means a master at anything I do, but I think it's really great to take the things that we learn and give back to other people. So today I would really like to help you dip your toes into some digital art. If you are looking to get into art in general, looking to specifically get into digital art, or looking for some direction for digital art if you're already sort of interested or trying it out, maybe I can give you some information to help you along the way. So, the basic tools that you're going to need are probably a laptop or a PC or an Apple computer and some form of tablet. So over here I have some examples of tablets. My biggest suggestion would be a Wacom tablet because they're the industry standard. They're very well made tablets and they have a range that is very wide, going from small introductory tablets that are very affordable, low cost, to high-end, there's a very high upper limit of extremely dedicated hardware for professional artists and people who want to spend lots of money on a really great tool. So there's a lot of room for you to find something that fits your personal needs and the type of art that you want, perhaps your mobility style. Like if you want a tablet that is small and portable versus one that is large and more of a workstation. There are plenty of other brands of tablets as well. I probably won't go over them very much because I personally only use Wacom products, so I don't have much personal experience in dealing with other tablet brands and I cannot vouch for their quality, but a few that I'm aware of are the XP Pen series and the Huion series. I have heard from other people that some of these tablets work very well, but again, I do not use them myself, so I can't really say much other than I know that they exist and there's information out there if you want to find out more about them. So, for computer use, programs that you might look into are Adobe Photoshop, Paint Tool Sci 2, Manga Studio 5 or Clip Studio Paint Pro as the digital copy is called, Gimp, Krita, and Autodesk Sketchbook. Now, especially for Apple products, there are also other programs like Procreate. There are a myriad of other digital art software programs out there as well, like Corel Studio. Plenty of just different off-the-wall programs, but these are probably the more common ones to get into. And of course, if you don't have a PC or a laptop or an Apple computer, other things you might use to draw on are tablets, like non-graphic tablets, as in perhaps like an iPad, or if you have a Samsung tablet or another pressure-sensitive or stylus-compatible tablet. There's a few others out there that are pretty decent. But for the purposes of my information, what I can share with you, I will be talking about using a laptop or a PC and usually just a Wacom tablet of some form. This includes the old Bamboo models, the Wacom Intuos, the Cintiq models. I have experience in all of those. So if we're going to talk about programs, I'll take the 6 here that I had suggested and I'll give a little bit more information about each one of them. Adobe Photoshop is probably the most suggested program. It is the program that you will always get recommended for digital art, photography, basic graphic design. Adobe has a number of other tools as well for vector-based artwork and more sort of professional logo design. Those would be Illustrator and a few other tools. There are some other photo editing tools like Lightroom. I would highly suggest, if you're interested in other types of digital art, non-specific to drawing and painting, sort of brushing stuff, that you could also look into Adobe products for other things that might fit your needs. But as far as Photoshop goes, it is probably the industry standard, most common for drawing and painting. Again, people use plenty of different software to create their art in, but this is probably the most common one. It has a ton of tools and features. In fact, if you're looking at my whole screen right now, I have Photoshop open. That's what I'm presenting this in, because I thought it would be fun to show off my ideas using the program that I use to create my art in. It's silly and a bit unprofessional, but I thought it would feel more natural for me to show you this. Photoshop is a large program. It has not only tools specific for brushing and inking and pen tools, but it also has tools to create vector-based shapes and objects. It has plenty of editing software or editing features for filtering, adding patterns to things. It's a very heavy program. It's very resource intensive, so that's kind of the downside, is that it has lots of tools. It can do a lot. It's quite a powerhouse of a program. Downside being it will eat up resources on your machine. You'll probably need a pretty decent computer to run Photoshop, especially if you're making any sort of larger product like a painting or a very large file size project. I would still suggest it. It's a wonderful program. I use Adobe Photoshop through the Creative Cloud system, so I pay about $10 a month. I'm not sure if they're still running that promotion or if there are other better ways to pay for Adobe Photoshop nowadays, but as a non-student who's not working for a company that's giving me a copy of this as part of my work contract, as an independent creator and a person who is learning and supporting myself, Creative Cloud through Adobe is one of my favorite ways to create art. It's affordable for me, and it does pretty much everything I need it to. So, on to the next one is Manga Studio 5. The digital copy is called Clip Studio Paint Pro. I also have this and use this from time to time. It is far less resource intensive than Photoshop and a bit more specified to brushing and inking. It's also a very powerful program, although certainly not as resource intensive, and it certainly doesn't have as many editing features as Photoshop does. It is a brushing studio focused program, so that means it gives you lots of tools for using different brushes and pencils and some vector-based lines. It's very great for creating manga style art or other panel layout comic type stuff. It has some very basic text editing as well that makes it much easier to do panel type artwork. It also has a 3D modeler in it that you can move sort of a dummy character around and position them, articulate their joints down to the fingers. So that's kind of cool if you're looking for something that offers you some tools in the nature of like learning how to do some perspective, or at least giving yourself an idea of what you want. There's also a huge community resource of background, brushes, all sorts of things that you might use for creating manga. Lots of assets, I suppose you could call it, patterns, textures that are all available through the Clip Studio Paint Pro community hub, and that's very good if you're interested in that type of project. Then on the next one that I use is Paint Tool Site 2. I remember using this years ago before the second one came out, and it is and always has been a program that creates beautiful inking, beautiful lines. You can get smooth lines, you can get crisp lines, you can get very fine edge inking lines. It is wonderful for creating lined art. I think it was created with manga style art in mind as well. It's a Japanese art program. It is wonderful. It's kind of like, if we're looking here in succession, Photoshop is heavy and sort of less specified in what it does. Manga Studio 5 is a little bit more specified towards brushing and a little bit lighter on the computer. Paint tool size even more specified towards brushing. It doesn't really have a text editor in it, so it's basically just drawn artwork and some very, very, very basic editing and filtering tools. You can use patterns and textures and things like that, but it's very basic. But the brushing is wonderful, how it renders the lines. It is very lightweight. You'll be able to use this on most computers and laptops. It is a wonderful program. I don't know how much it costs nowadays. I think probably in the nature of $35 to $40 USD. I'm not sure, don't hold me to that. I know Manga Studio, a copy of this will probably cost you about $50 US dollars. And then onto the next row here. Gimp is free to use. It's similar to Adobe Photoshop. I say that, take that with a grain of salt. It's like the freeware version of Photoshop almost. It has a lot of similar tools. The program does not run as well. It's a bit more jittery and choppy. There aren't all of Photoshop's features in there, but there are a lot of Photoshop's features in there, and it does work very well. If you don't have the money to invest in Photoshop, or you're looking to try out how you feel about creating digital artwork, or you're more casual, feel free to download Gimp. It's a great place to start. It's a great place to practice with some of the tools that Photoshop has, without having to put down the investment of money into Photoshop. You can always opt to try Photoshop later. In the next vein here is Krita. It's sort of similar to Manga Studio 5. It just doesn't have, to my knowledge, it doesn't have the posing dummy that you can put in a 3D environment. I don't think it has anything like that. To my knowledge, and as far as I've seen when using it, it's a very Brush Studio focused program. It is also pretty easy to learn. It has a pretty clean layout. It's a very popular one for people looking to get into freeware for drawing. It's a pretty nice tool. And then another one that used to be a personal favorite of mine and I have not used in years but really enjoyed when I did use it was Autodesk Sketchbook. It has, again, a very brushing studio feel, very minimal on the editing, but it does have some very useful tools. I remember back in the day there was a mirror tool where you could basically use it to quickly create like a face or some sort of an object or something. You would basically be drawing half of it and it would be mirroring your movements on the other side of the symmetry line. So you could do vertical or horizontal symmetry, and it would be very useful for creating some types of designs and making sure that things are even and clean. It's got a very great feel for sketching, and it's overall just a wonderful, delightful program. I think there's even a mobile version for tablet users or people who are bold and want to try drawing on their stylus-compatible phones. So this has been my introduction into digital art and digital art programs. I would love to do another part of this series where I start talking about actually the process of drawing. I personally spend a lot of time drawing people and faces and characters in particular. I love to do painted style stuff and sketches. I love to do concept design and illustration. So those are things that I will probably be focusing on because they are where I have the most information and skills to share with you. So with that being said, I want to thank you very much for sitting along with me today and listening to me babble about art programs and whatnot. And I really hope to have a new video out for you soon where I can start showing you how to draw things, because I think that would be a lot of fun. So thank you, and subscribe if you would like to come back and see what I have to share next. Have a great day.